Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer, back in the same studio here, if you will. On the East Coast out there, we are going to be looking at this 4-game slate that we have on Tuesday following that big 11-1 on Monday. But some pretty good matchups in this game and some good value in this best bets video that we have right here for you. Also have our player props up as we do each and every weekday with both these vids. So make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along. And head to thelines.com. Use everything that we're putting up on the site in addition to this video to help you guys with those bets today. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into this best bets video here with these 4 games. I think we have some fun games to watch at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take the Mavs at Sacramento, and it's just a gigantic rest advantage. First off, like if you're just scanning the schedule ahead of time and looking for a spot, Dallas is that spot right here. They're on 3 days rest, and their last 3 games have not even been competitive. They've been 2 against Utah and 1 against the Spurs. So it's really been 9 days since they've had a legitimate game, and they beat Denver. But I mean, maybe that's a negative in the sense that it might take them a little time to settle into this one, if you will, because they haven't played an important game, and this is extremely important with the teams literally tied in the standings. It's also a home set, right? So the Kings could, and they're on a back-to-back here, so they might lose this one, say, that's all right, we'll come back and we'll split it. This is their 5th game in 7 nights on top of being a back-to-back. That includes tough travel on the road, Toronto to Washington on a back-to-back on the road, then down to Orlando, then back home to face Philly. They're still without Kevin Huerter, who has been pretty key in terms of their 3-point offense. This year, they're playing 5 possessions slower and scoring 6 points fewer without him. There is some stuff here that I found that would indicate under. Including that the Mavs are 8-4 to the under when they have a rest advantage, but I'm not touching an under in Sacramento. Like, full stop. Like, especially when you have the firepower that you have on Dallas's side, and with the Kairuka here and on extra rest. But I do like Dallas here at just like even money to win the game. If it does come down to the wire, which the spread would certainly indicate, the Mavs have the number 1 record in the league, 20-8 in clutch games, and they're plus 20 net. Kings are number 12. They're all right, but post All-Star break, they're 21st in offense and -5 net in these clutch games. They've kind of been feasting on some poor teams in a sense. They score much fewer points, and they shoot 33% on back-to-backs. Their opponent shooting also rises to 42% from 3 when they're on a back-to-back, and we know that's Dallas, their bread and butter. They've actually been scoring in a much more variety of ways, though, right? Since they got Gafford and PJ in there, they've actually been one of the best teams in terms of scoring in the restricted area, with Gafford leading the charge there. And then I think the key is defensively. Sabonis has dominated in these last 2 matchups. They played the same kind of home last February. Mavs actually won the first one without Luka. But, I don't think Sabonis dominates against this deep front court now. The Gafford-Lively split, the Mavs are down 5 points in terms of defensive rating since this trade. They are 8th in terms of limiting offensive rebounds, 10th paint points, and they have the 12th best defensive rebound percentage. Their only struggle is against threes, but with Huerter being out and the Kings being 23rd in the percentage of their points off threes, I don't see them being able to keep pace with how much the Mavs can score from beyond the arc.
100% agree with that. I would also add, not only are you getting less Huerter right now, you're getting a lot more Keon Ellis. And Keon Ellis is one of these dudes like Jaden Springer, where he's buried on someone's bench, but he's probably your best wing defender. See Kason Wallace, who just doesn't have room to play out on that Thunder team, but is probably already a top 10 wing defender in the league in his first season out here. So that's the type of player that Keon Ellis is. He slows the game down. Huerter's their number 1 dude in terms of shooting threes off of that dribble handoff, which they run way more than anybody else, like 5 more possessions per game than even the team in second place running that dribble handoff play. So Huerter being so involved in that has been a huge sort of opener for them on from the 3-point line. And I say all that to say that like my favorite is bet in this game is the under. It has got bet down a little bit, but I still think under 233.5 is very live to play in this one with both these teams on the back-to-back, like you mentioned. So also really love the addition of Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. Like you said, it gives them depth. Like even when they've had good rim running centers to play alongside Luka, they haven't had depth at that position. So when their bench comes in, they don't have that dude. When Derek Lively came off the floor, they didn't have a rim running center. Now they've got two of them, plus they've got a much better defender. But PJ Washington equals unders as well. Dude has absolutely been dynamite on defense and equally almost as terrible on offense. So all of it does scream under to me as well. But I'm going to go to another game with an under, in my opinion, which is that Oklahoma City and NOLA game without Brandon Ingram. Under 223, easy for me to say, and a half. You can still get that one. Has also been bet down a little bit from the opening total that came out, but I still think it's live at 223.5. Without Brandon Ingram, it's a huge part of this. I think both these teams are also tailor-made to stop what the other one wants to do on offense. If you look at the Pellies without BI, just for starters, everything slows down and all the points sort of dissipate. With him, they're at 119 offensive rating versus 116.7 when he's not out there in the games in general. And his on-off stuff when he's in the games is pretty much the same discrepancy there, about 3 points per 100 worse when he's off the floor. And that's, in all situations. So that takes into account that there's been plenty of games with Zion and more actually without more with him this season than without. That's about 162 points per game with him and 112.8 without him, nearly 3-point difference there. The pace speeds up by a full possession 100, and the defense does get worse as well. It gets better rather without him. And that's in part just because they're playing more slowly, but their D rating is 2 points per 100 better without him. And in part, you're just going to get more of those defenders that come off the bench for them and play minutes. Now Trey Murphy starting and Herb Jones getting those minutes as well, but also Najee Marshall out there equals a lot more defense and a bit less offense than Brandon Ingram. So I think, like I was saying about this matchup here, like New Orleans is going to do everything they can to push the ball to the corners. They don't take very many above the break shots outside of CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram, who's not in there anymore, was the dude taking the second most after CJ. CJ is going to be fine out there. I mean, he'll probably get a bad matchup as he usually does in this game. I think he'll be running the offense a bit more, and you'll see a bit more point Zion. But usually point Zion also means throwing that ball into the corners off of drives, and the OKC is sixth best in terms of limiting the amount of corner threes that you make and the percentage that you shoot from there. So I think, if I was going to play a side in this one, I'd probably take the Thunder, but that's also when the Pellies go Pelly and just sort of show up in a game that you don't think, and they're going to just, start raining threes in a way that I couldn't predict. But I think the Thunder will be able to keep this thing a little bit. Let me put it this way. I think the Pellies are going to keep that pace down. And as a result, I think the Thunder are really going to have to play a half-court defense, which they've been top 5 in the league in defensive efficiency in terms of limiting the half-court offense. So I think all of it does scream under. These teams have gone under in 3 of their last 4 as well. So there's some precedence here.
Yeah, I probably will endorse more OKC -2 or -1.5 as you originally had in here, because I just think the Pelicans haven't. I mean, they've been hot lately, but they haven't really played good teams. They obviously let us down while BI got hurt in Orlando, and now without him, going to be a little bit more vulnerable. Got absolutely waxed by Cleveland the last time they had with extended rest at home, and then like beating the Clippers with a rest advantage doesn't do anything for me. I mean, maybe we're overrating them to a degree versus the Thunder seem like they've just been kind of like bored post All-Star break. Like they're just not at their full powers. But I think this matchup will get their antennae up, especially after getting pwned in Milwaukee, right? And Shai, you can't keep him down for this many games in a row, right? He's had a couple duds in a row. I think he probably comes out there and does do his 30+ thing. I will take another under, though, in Milwaukee. Lakers at Bucks, under 232.5, with LeBron James doubtful to play. And the splits haven't been as notable this year as last year when we were like, oh my God, LeBron's out. Bet that under. Because it was a 6-point per game difference, a significant difference in pace. The Lakers have actually kind of held the ship about the same in 9 games without Bron this year. But, I mean, how long is that going to last in a true sample size? And I think maybe you get some value here because it was a 123-122 game against Milwaukee without LeBron 18 days ago. But that was in LA, big home road splits that I can get into a little bit here. But also D'Lo going for 44 points on 9 for 12 from three, and the team's only combining for 11 turnovers. So interesting, like lack of effort on the defensive end. But I mean, if you look at the home road stuff, like the Lakers' 4 road games since the All-Star break, 111 a game, 96 pace, pretty slow. One of the lowest free throw rates in the league, under 16 free throw attempts. And they're actually third in free throw rate at home and 28th on the road in this small sample since the All-Star break. These teams are also number 2 and 3 limiting free throws since the All-Star break, which is great for your under. Bucks at home since the break, 6-0 straight up, 4 of those games under. And the overs are kind of exceptional here. Under in 7 of their last 9 at home. And 7 of their last 8 with Giannis, because they had that crazy shootout with Phoenix. And then the only over was a 223 game where they were on a back-to-back against Brooklyn. So not getting you over here. And it's just like the Doc Rivers Bucks. We have been talking about unders for a while. They've obviously emphasized getting back, guarding the paint overall else, daring certain guys to hit threes. Can you hit threes? I mean, the Lakers on the season have hit the 6th fewest on the road and attempted the 4th fewest. And now without LeBron in a larger sample, that's the biggest thing where it falls off a cliff, right? And you look at last season, it's like their attempts, their makes, their percentage is way worse without LeBron in there. It's going to be way more of Anthony Davis at the elbow, slow down, drag out game, and less of a free-flowing Lakers shootout, which we just saw 2 days ago with the Pacers, an insane shootout. But this is going to be a different story, I think, against the Bucks defense that's disciplined and has Giannis back in there to help anchor it.
I think all of that makes sense. I like really everything I want to. I guess everything inside me, and when I look at this game and just the internal knowledge I already have about this matchup and with and without LeBron, all that stuff does scream under, and the numbers don't necessarily support it all the time this year, like you were saying. But I do agree, like that would be sort of the outlier in the trend to me. I think more likely this team continues to go under in this matchup where, like you said, Milwaukee, a bit more emphasis on defense. They have kind of come back to their poor ways on defense and got, become a bit more efficient on offense. The thing that scared me away from taking this particular side on the total here is mostly just the if D'Lo is going up. Both these teams just aren't guarding the top of the key. It's really that simple. We'll see if the interior defense can probably hold up for the Lakers with Giannis, taking things to the rim and to them. But just as important is Dame going to go off? We've seen his point prop increase a couple points as people are targeting the fact that with more D'Lo in there at the top of the key, you're weaker on defense for a few extra minutes because D'Lo's playing closer to 36 now rather than the 32 that he was playing. If that is the case and it opens up to that degree, it could be a little bit scary to take an under with these teams, anything under 240. But I think it is going to be tough for the Lakers to score, to be honest, without LeBron. And we've seen them hunker down on defense though when he's out, especially in the way we saw them win that game at the Garden. They won a couple games on the road at the game against the Celtics not about a month and a half ago in the same situation without LeBron, and they kept it low scoring so that they didn't have to rely on guys like Austin Reeves to get them 25 points to make up for what they're missing with LBJ. So the Lakers covering it coincides with that under 232.5, to be honest. But there might be some value with such a big spread. But I'm gonna close things out. We've only got 4 games on the slate. This Miami and Dubs game makes me nervous in a couple of different ways. Not the least of which is like which Miami team is going to show up in terms of like pace and scoring, where we've seen them randomly at home just play games that they go over, like well over this total of 217.5 now. But really also like which Miami team is going to show up in terms of like seeming to care from start to finish. I can't guarantee that. They're awful in the clutch this season, but if you're going to bet on Miami in this one, it would be the money line rather than the +2.5. I mean, there's clear numbers to indicate that you bet the money line with a 2.5 point dog each time to make more money off of it over time. But I kind of wanted to bring up, so for the reason I would take it, simply put, for the Miami team handling things against the Dubs is if you limit offensive rebounds and you can defend the 3-point line, then you can stop the Dubs. Like that's really what it's going to come down to, and the mid range. If you defend jump shots and you don't allow offensive rebounds, then you should be pretty good. And they have had the number 1 offensive rebound percentage, limiting the other team's offensive rebound percentage over the last 5 and over the last 10 games. They have been rebounding very well. We've got Jimmy back in there Bam, and then Jaime has been playing a bunch as well, as sort of like a pretty big three down low anyway on defense. I think that is going to be their advantage. So that's what I look at here is the plus 114 on the money line for Miami to win. If they're going to like that, that's it. It's really just I don't trust this Dubs team, but they have been better on the road once again this season, like they were last season. Things have kind of come back around to the way they were. They started off nicely at home, and then now have been much worse. They've also played really good comp. I just think it's another tough road trip for them. Another back to back with Orlando, right? That's going to be another tough matchup for them after they just played a slobber knocker versus the Minnesota Timberwolves as well. That was a really tough loss at the end, and we've seen that like in the minutes that Steph is off the floor, that's it. Like when he left the game in the third quarter against the Timberwolves, they were up 8. When he came back, they were down 8. Like that's some couple years ago Jokic level stuff that there's no way I can trust this team and like Klay Thompson to shoot them out of it, even the way he was getting hot against Minnesota. So that's one thing I wanted to say. I also was looking at a couple futures just because I don't have quite as much for that game, where Denver right now to win to take the 1 seed is plus 140. The fact that you can still get plus money while they're a game up in first, I love. I think the only team you'd be decently afraid of is Minnesota at this point, but the way that Minnesota, the weapons that they've lost, basically meaning Cat, the fact that Rudy and Naz Reid are still in and out and not guaranteed to play all of these games at the end of the season does indicate to me like they're the only team with an easier strength of schedule that could have a shot at taking Denver down. And Denver has the 20th easiest, basically the 10th easiest schedule in the league remaining, whereas Oklahoma City and a couple of these other teams at the top alongside them, like the Pellies, they have like the 5th and 4th hardest schedules left as well. So there's a lot to look at when looking at the futures here for Denver to win this conference as the 1 seed right now and take that down. So I think that was a couple of things I was looking at, because I was also looking at fading the Dubs, who are only a half a game up on this Rockets team, but the Rockets also have an incredibly tough strength of schedule left, whereas the Dubs don't have played the bulk of the strength of theirs. So just a couple other extra things to look at here if you're interested in some futures.
Yeah, I mean, at first, I don't know what to do with Miami, Golden State, because the Heat are once again playing their mind games, and but I think of the futures you mentioned. Yeah, that's great value to just take to Denver to lock up the 1 seed here. I mean, if you're worried about Minnesota, they still have the head-to-head matchups against Denver, which they would have to win to pass them, and I don't think that's happening in this current state. And OKC's schedule, like you mentioned, is about to get really tough. Like you bet this now before they get a back-to-back against Houston. They get Phoenix, then they hit the road. They have the Knicks and Celtics on the road. They close against the Bucks and Mavs, who might need that game very much, the Mavs. So I think the Nuggets, they can handle anybody. But yeah, OKC is going to have a much tougher road down the stretch if they want to try to catch Denver.
Yeah, we'll see how the young guns do towards the end of this season and into the playoffs for those Thunder. But that is all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along. Check out the Play of Props video we also have up for you. And until we see you next, happy betting.